On this episode of The Outdoorsman, we finally got another buck on the ground for you guys, and it may have taken the rut, but the rut is what every hunter lives for. So stay tuned, and we hope you enjoy. Now, as most of you guys saw, I kicked my season off at the hills by shooting a doe out at 52 yards. And as most of you guys probably don't know, that was actually a goal for me. One of the things I strived for this season was to extend my range with that compound bow. And after shooting a doe at 52 yards, it definitely was a confidence booster. Now, another goal for me this season was to get my first self-filmed buck kill using my bow. That goal has been something I've been trying to do since I started filming, and that was back in middle school. The thing is, the older I get, the more challenging it gets. And the reason being is because of the bucks that I'm chasing. When you're chasing 4, 5, and 6-year-old bucks that are smarter, a little more tricky, they didn't get that old by being stupid, and then you throw 2 cameras and a compound bow into that situation, it's not the easiest task. Well, as my season progressed, I was starting to get the feeling I was just going to have a repeat of the previous years, where I don't achieve that goal of getting my first self-filmed buck kill using my bow. Due to the fact that I just had so few mature bucks on my trail cameras, and that every encounter so far this season had been with just younger bucks. Little did I know that was going to change on November 6th, where I had a full off day to get out and hunt the hills property. And of course I'm going to take advantage of that. So I head on out to the hills for a morning sit, and I was going to be in that little staging area set where all my actions happened in the past, where I killed bull last year, where I killed tumors a couple years ago. And the reason that set is so perfect is because it's a staging area. I got bedding up at the top corners of the property, and I got the food source down in the bottom. Now, there might be other intersections and other staging areas on that hills property, but because I've cleared that section out and I've kept food there and I've kept minerals there, the does spend more time coming through that intersection than any others, so the bucks spend more time coming through that intersection as well. So anyway, I get out to the hills that cold November morning. Temperature is perfect, high 30s, low 40s. I got the wind in my favor blowing right at my face, blowing my scent cone right into the pond behind me. I couldn't ask for a better morning. Well, my first encounter comes at 9 o'clock, and it's a younger buck that had come down from the top right corner bedding area, came down to the little feed plot, did his business, and then moved on. And there's no better strategy or tactic than to take advantage of a live decoy during the rut. So a little while after that buck moved off, I cracked those antlers and painted a picture that something was going down on that staging area. Well, about 10 minutes later, something steps out at 20 yards. At first glance, I reached down and grabbed the bow. Wasn't 100% sure who he was, but he looked like a mature buck. I had no pictures of him at the time, but looked like a good deer. I'm sitting there trying to figure out who he is, thinking about bucks in the previous year, looking at his body size, and I just couldn't tell. So I made the mistake of putting my bow back in that bow stand, and I was going to let him walk. And eventually he feeds, does his business, checks a few areas, walks up, hits the scrape, and then moves off. Well, I didn't end up seeing anything for the rest of the morning, and when I left the woods at about 11 o'clock to go home, get some lunch, let my dogs out, I was kicking myself. But I also took some time to look at previous trail cam pictures and pull up that footage because I wanted to find out who that deer was. And it turns out I actually had pictures of him last year. It was just one of those bucks that didn't spend a whole lot of time on the hills, so I didn't put him as a priority. And all the pictures I had of him, I never could see that freaky G1 that he had on his right side. But it turns out last year I placed him to be 3.5, so that would make him 4.5 this year. And I sent the footage I got of him in the morning off to Tyler, and he agreed that that deer was 4.5. So I was really kicking myself because that was my perfect opportunity right there to achieve that goal of getting my first self-filmed buck kill. So I went back out that afternoon with my head hanging a little low, but I was confident that there was going to be another opportunity, or who knows, maybe he'll stroll back by.
Well, here it is, guys. The afternoon hunt of November 6th. I hunted this morning, trying to do an all-day sit. I left, got some lunch, had to take care of my dogs, and then we're back out here this afternoon to see if we can maybe get it done. The wind, though, as you guys can see and hear, it's pretty gusty. I think it's going to get up to 20-mile-an-hour gust. Now it's just off and on, so I can deal with it. It's not that big of a deal. Before we got in the stand, I refreshened the scent traps that we got. I got one over here to the right, one over here to my left. Tried a different brand this morning, tried a different brand this afternoon. We're just trying things out this afternoon. We're gonna hopefully see if we can possibly get a deer to stroll by. When I walked up here, I actually kicked a button buck off of the corn, and it's crazy because driving around this afternoon, when I left here, there was just all kinds of deer movement. So midday stuff should be pretty good. We're gonna hit the horns together, do a little grunting. Man, I just want to draw some blood. There's a couple good bucks running around here. Conditions are right. Everything feels right. Let's see it. I don't know. We'll see what happens, guys. Stay tuned.
We done.
I just drilled him. That is the buck we saw this morning. And I was kicking myself. I'm like, man, I shouldn't have passed that deer. I don't know who he was. 10 yards right there, just freaking drilled him. Gotta get on the phone and call the boys. We'll call Tyler. Get your camera, bruh. I'm tagged out. That deer that I saw this morning, you gotta see this entry hole, bro. Alright, so another buck's on the ground. Keep the TO team rolling. Yeah. Buck down, baby. Well, here it is, November 6th, and I'm sitting behind my Kentucky buck for this year. I put in so much work at the hills between food plots, ground blinds, tree stands, feed plots, running all kinds of cameras, and it just seemed like the pictures this year were dwindling. I had very few mature bucks showing up at the hills this year, and it really didn't start to change till recently in late October. And since then, there's been quite a few bucks showing up. And I actually had an encounter with this buck this morning, and I was kicking myself when I left at noon because I let him walk. I just wasn't sure on him, and I'd seen bigger deer on my camera. And I know a few years ago when I did that, I was holding out for a bigger deer. I didn't end up filling my buck tag, so I didn't want to let that happen again. And I told myself, if I come back in here and he presents himself again like that, I'm not going to let him walk because he is a dandy of a buck. And I'm pretty sure I've got pictures of him last year at 3.5, so I do think this deer is a 4.5-year-old buck. And something that stands out, I mean, look at that right G1. That is unbelievable. Definitely going to make a really pretty European mount. The shot too, did you guys see the impact? The Rage X-Treme chewed him in half. The deer went about 37 yards if I measured correctly. And this afternoon too, let's go into the My Bow Buddy stand. This was my first successful hunt while using that tree stand hanger that My Bow Buddy makes. And the winds today were at 20 miles an hour gusts, and Bo hung in there just fine, had no issues whatsoever. Unfortunately, I wasn't actually grabbing the bow out of the stand when he walked up. I was actually packing up to leave, and I turned around because I thought I heard something. And sure enough, there he was coming up the hill. And when he came out onto the little feed plot chasing that little buck, he just turned perfectly to where I nailed him at 10 yards. And it's crazy because I'm feeling like I'm seeing deja vu because we did this last year on October 25th with Bull, and I practically shot him in almost the same exact spot. So I don't know, I guess I'm seeing doubles because this is a pretty good deer as an 8-pointer as well. I don't know if we'd classify him as a 9, but what a buck and what a sit. Guys, I hope you enjoyed this hunt. Be sure to give us a thumbs up, hit that subscribe button, check us out on all our social media pages, and we'll catch you guys later on the next episode of The Outdoorsman.